Using it as space for the Historical Society. And another interesting idea was converting it into shared office space, an incubator kind of space. So there are a lot of people here that live in town who might work at home. And for those people, if they had a place to go where they would get a good internet connection, where they had access to printers or lots of coffee, they might want to go down there and work. So there are certainly some interesting possibilities that can be used for this building. So, yeah.
And that's not Holy Angels, that's the church up top.
Right. Yeah.
With Holy Angels, my heart sings performing arts space, being a performing arts teacher for nearly 40 years. But we still come back to our same problem, which is, where do we park?
Right. Well, that's a good question. So the where do we park question is by other groups, but one of the things we've talked about, we've also talked about with the Conservation Commission, is would it be feasible to build a little bridge over the stream behind the church to the town parking lot? And the Conservation Commission seemed to think that that would be feasible. So whatever happens down there, one of the things that I'm hoping we could talk about doing is building a little bridge over the stream so people could park in the town-owned parking lot and have access to whatever we wind up doing. Other questions? Parking lot is a parcel of land that Thompson owns, and I don't know, someone I guess mentioned this today, whether there's any oil contamination. We're certainly going to have to investigate that, but depending on how we decide as a town to do this, there certainly can be accommodations for parking.
That would be both a public project and a private developer. So if you were to talk about what you do with Holy Angels tearing down the rest of it, if you do that and now destroy the historic value, it's off the register, or out of the district, and no longer eligible for grant. So a grant would be part of the incentive for a developer to do something with it. So I think when we talk about tearing buildings down, we have to look at the whole picture. Are we actually taking away, or are we,
Sure.
but for me, and I think before extra buildings are the only thing and
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. If we want to keep our New England town center, and somebody mentioned that town meeting becoming like Grafton Commons, I agree. It's the anchor buildings that make the town center what it's always been and what it always should be.
Right.
I'm sorry, I should add a little building. I know there's mixed feelings about this, but the place is probably the most historic. I think it's open building that area where it's going on. But it has a very historic past, and that was on the presentation list also. We need this way to enhance it, where the private owner can let have to do their stuff. So it is very historic.
Okay. Other questions about this? No? Okay. Peter.
Thanks. Allison, you want to talk about traffic and parking issues?
was going to ask if there was any one of these buildings that was, any one of these buildings on this that like said, this is what Upton should look like, what future buildings should look like. Was any one of them most?
I really think so.
It's like this one.
So this one,
It's over there.
this one,
The green space right there.
all right. I mean, so what I see in the pictures that are under here is, generally, it seems like you guys are supportive of two-story buildings, not so supportive of 3- and 4-story buildings. It looked like historic-looking buildings. Currently, no. I think it's a 2-story limit, yeah. Yes. Yeah, there's a lot of things that are currently in the town center that wouldn't be allowed to be built now. No, a lot of things pre-exist the zoning. They're from before the zoning was built, so there were 3- and 4-story buildings in the past in Upton. It's just that you can't currently build them. But what I see from the results down here is that generally the 3- and 4-story buildings got a lot of red dots. So can we take this off? Right. All right. Great. Thank you. And Allison, I'm going to move you over because
Okay,
the camera guy wants us to stand between here and there. So
okay.
I'm going to move this over.
Okay. Okay.
If you could stand over here.
Sure. So my group, we talked about traffic, parking, and streetscapes. So that we first started out identifying areas that are dangerous for pedestrians or for vehicles, where cars are driving too fast or where it's hard to see, where there's unsafe crosswalks, that kind of thing. So a couple of things that I heard in both sessions. There's a lot of speed coming through town. It seems like I asked where in particular, which turns in particular are difficult in this intersection. It sounds like all of them. So I heard everyone say that it's hard to see coming up around here, that this is kind of a blind spot. I heard that parked cars along both sides of 140 block your view as you're turning in both directions here. I heard that this is a particular, coming from Grove Street to North Main is a particularly treacherous way to cross. And also that coming around this steep turn from Main onto Grove in both directions is difficult. And then another thing I heard from a lot of people was that the sidewalks are kind of uneven and not particularly well maintained. So some of them are fine, some of them are rutted or absent in places. So there is kind of a general desire for better maintained sidewalks and more consistent sidewalks. And then another thing I heard is that this crosswalk that goes from, it's sort of hard to see with this these Post-its, but this crosswalk from the church to the common isn't used as much now that Holy Angels is no longer a functioning parish. And that this is sort of a blind spot coming around here where if you're crossing, people can't see as they're coming around the curve, so people are nervous to cross in that crosswalk. Any other particularly dangerous spots that I missed? Yeah. Is also dangerous, yeah, because it seems like what I heard was kind of this whole curve is sort of a blind spot, and so people driving in both directions can't see far enough for that to be safe. So with that in mind, yeah. Warren Street? Yeah. So if you come down here and take a left, or just Warren Street in general? Yeah. Yeah, I heard there's a lot of speeding on that street. Or just like cars shooting down. Yeah, absolutely. Right. Yeah. So with that in mind, the folks in my group came up with a couple of different potential configurations for how to address some of these issues. So this is option number 1. So in this option, Warren Street would actually be closed, and then Main Street would be rerouted just behind the library, and this part of Grove Street would also be closed. So in that configuration, this 5-way intersection would become a 3-way intersection, so eliminating 2 of those potential turnouts. This configuration also proposed making this a 1-way, Main Street this way, and this a 1-way, so that, or actually, I'm sorry, that was a different configuration. This one proposes, because Grove Street this time would be closed, then this whole area from the library all the way over to the VFW and the playgrounds would be like an open area for people where you could safely walk. And there could be a pedestrian bridge over the stream to connect the library with these ball fields and playgrounds and this sort of general recreational area. So that's one alternative that my group came up with. Another alternative takes some of those same ideas and pushes them a little bit further. But in this alternative, Warren Street again would be closed. This half of Grove Street would again be closed, and Main Street would be rerouted again behind the library. And then this would be a 1-way street kind of going behind the library and coming up through the VFW parking lot. And this would be a 1-way street. So it would sort of be like a roundabout, but going in a really large, going all the way through town. So the idea is to basically narrow the travel lane here and reduce the number of intersections coming together, and then put more space for parking and potential businesses along another road. So 2 alternatives there. The third one, so in the third configuration, there would be a roundabout that would come in front of the auto repair place here. So to orient you, here's a town hall, here's the library. So there would be a roundabout here. Again, it seems like closing Warren Street was pretty popular among folks who came to at least my group. So that would be closed. Again, this Main Street would again be rerouted down here so that it wouldn't, so that this bit of Grove Street would be closed. So again, we're talking about a 3-way intersection here. So reducing the number of cars coming together, and then, yeah, so that's the main change here with some crosswalks right here, one coming over here to the library, and then one down by Town Hall. So the common actually is mostly preserved, so the roundabout would be essentially right in the middle of the intersection, and only looks like there's like maybe 10 feet of the common might be cut off, but at least in the way that it's drawn now, not much of the common would be taken over. So, yeah. Yeah. Let me get this one. No, it's more that, so if you're coming up by the Country Super, you would take a right from here. Okay. No, so if you were coming from Milford, you wouldn't change, you would go the same way you've been going. It wouldn't change at all. So you come up by Country Super, you would take a right just behind the library, and it would cross over Grove Street, and then somehow go behind. There would be a new road built behind that area, behind the church, and then it would come out at the VFW parking lot. Yeah. I think that alternative does assume that. Yeah. Yes. And to be clear, this is this is just ideas. Yeah. Yeah. Like what? What do you have in? Yeah. Yeah. Oh, no. So this is purely focusing on traffic. So I just focused. No. So my group focused on traffic, parking, and pedestrian safety. So we didn't talk much about economic development, but obviously those things are all related.
When we get to the model, what was interesting coming out of that is that certain street configurations really seem to open up large areas, especially that idea of rerouting Grove Street to come to the library opens up that whole area for some kind of either open space or redevelopment with relatively little cost other than building a new street there. This one, and then it's been discussed before, what if we put another street or a bypass for 140 that went south somehow and avoided the whole village center, which this is kind of a version of, requires you to build a large bridge or causeway across the wetlands and the stream, which is certainly feasible, but is millions and millions of dollars by itself to build bridges, and then you have the permitting issues and the environmental impacts. So the question as we evaluate these in coming weeks is which ones seem to be worth the cost environmentally or financially. I mean, this is a really interesting idea, but is it worth the cost for opening this up? And you could look at, do you get 50% more space, and therefore you're going to get the tax revenue to pay for this or not? So we don't really know yet, but certainly rerouting roads does open up opportunities for other things, which is why we're looking at it.
Yes. So I think we, yeah.
Right, so this is the simplest, probably, of just having Grove Street come out behind the library through the old abandoned house. Does that house have a name?
Abandoned house.
6 Main. It's 6 Main.
So
It's 6 Main.
6 Main. Not 666. Just 6.
Talked about how Warren Street would be repurposed. Would it turn into a parking lot or something?
Well, that's the question. What would Warren Street become? Just parking?
Sounds like an open space question, too.
Does anyone live up in this area? You do? I live behind the church. You live behind the church? It's parallel. Yeah, what are your thoughts on that idea?
It is a horrible turn if you're coming out of Warren and trying to cross
Yeah. Right.
I know that the fire department had potential issues with closing Warren.
Okay, that might be a thing to think about.
Fire chief, police chief, and DPW director are all okay with closing the doors.
Oh, okay. Sorry, did you have a? Okay. Okay. Yeah. So you would be okay with closing it? Okay, good to know. Yeah.
If you close down Warren Street, is there really any reason to go around the town hall problem speed?
Yeah.
And I saw the little yellow students up there, but I didn't really want to mention that. I know talking about the road, will the state like to put speed bumps in?
Potentially, yeah.
If you put speed bumps in, that would slow them down, and you don't even have to. I don't see, if you're closing Warren Street, I don't see the advantage of going around the library.
Well, in this reiteration, we're just moving Grove in order to create land.
Yes, yeah.
So,
So it's essentially moving Grove from here to here.
Yes.
It's not like a big road, like area change, yeah.
By removing Rowley Road, I think that's the least expensive option.
Yeah.
One. Number two, it creates that parking and or space. I mean, maybe for the
It's
library,
right, it's more continuous from here to here.
maybe a big library, or maybe not, but you increase the parking and center parking, green spaces, and maybe
Yeah,
right down the street, or people could go down the street and kind of go to Bridgeville.
right, yeah.
You know, I see that as the lowest cost option.
Yeah, yeah, potentially, yeah.
So two things, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law live up Warren, I know they lived up Warren when they redid this building.
Okay.
They loved it.
Okay,
Second
Great
thing
to know.
is, I like this idea, but my concern is traffic flow and the amount of traffic that comes from Grove to North Main on, and I don't live on this side of town, but I just know that is like it's as busy as.
people coming like this
Correct.
direction, yeah.
So commuter time in the morning and in the evening time to reroute it around like that and then have someone go around like that, you're gonna need traffic lights and that's gonna give
Yeah.
a whole different vibe to that area, and that's one of my concerns with this.
So if you were coming,
So if you
oh,
come
coming
from
up,
the
so you'd
bottom,
have to go
Yeah.
here and then.
take a right and then you have to go left up
Yeah.
there, so it's,
That's my preferred, I live on Mendon Street, so that's the way I come and go to 495.
like that.
Yeah, because it's almost impossible, there are certain times of the day, it's almost impossible to cross from Grove Street to North.
Right,
I'm
so,
just thinking you're gonna need like left and turning signals and stuff like
No,
that, you know?
because if you look at coming behind the Christine
Right.
building, you have good, clear views both ways. Yeah, right.
and then it puts you in the lane, where then you can turn left. Right.
Right, to take that left.
That's good.
Yeah, that's a good point. That is a good point. And go all the way around. Yeah. Yeah. An issue with the brook?
No, behind, if you took down 6 Main, it's not impacted, the road would be parallel to the brook.
I think the road would go,
The
this
brook
is 6 Main, so I
after
think,
6 Main, the
I
brook
think the
is
road would
right,
go kind of like right.
and here's the brook right
So
here.
you'd be able to build outside the brook. Yeah?
You do have space between Route 140 and the church. There's a side driveway in front of that. You could just put, if they come off of the road,
This church?
the way you're suggesting, yes.
Yeah.
You could put a left turn lane in there so that the people can go left and go up.
Oh, like this? Huh.
There's additional,
Oh, to do a left turn lane?
because in front of the church and the other, they have a driveway, and then there's about a 8-foot sidewalk there.
Right.
Squeeze the road over or move the road slightly when they redo this intersection.
another thing that came up regarding this area of town is essentially pushing the common up, and then rather than going up this way to get onto North Main, to come up and take a left and reopen this street right by the pizza shop. So to come up that way, and that would be sort of a more direct turn. Yeah, and I heard from a lot of different folks that it used to be that way. So yes.
Had a suggestion while we were all sitting in this building, and we're all talking about different ways to do it. The right way in my mind and thinking right now is that we have nice weather coming on, physically walk us to us outside, and we get a better idea in our minds what things will work and not work. But we can sit here all day, and all day next tomorrow, the day after, and but until we physically walk through it, we get a better picture in our mind of how to do it.
That's an excellent suggestion, and if you didn't hear earlier, what we're going to do is when we're done with this meeting, hopefully in 3 o'clock, we're going to take a walk and go look at some things.
All right.
Anything else
I think that's all for
missing? Yeah. We're very quickly running short of this. What seemed like a very long time is disappearing on us. Shall we talk about open space and recreation and neighborhood connectivity? There you go. Oh.
I'll start out by saying we were the fun group. That we developed themes, I think pretty fast, both the first group and the second group. In talking about, what would you like to see, a couple of things came up, and Mike is going to deal with more the map and everything, but 2 things came up. One of them was the center needs to be walkable. Right now it is not walkable. The sidewalks that we have are in fairly poor shape. We need improved sidewalks and much expanded sidewalks. We've even started drawing, where these sidewalks should go. One of my favorite comments that someone made in the group was, I'd like to be able to come to town center, buy a smoothie, and take a nice walk. And then we were talking about, sidewalks and open areas, with benches, maybe a walk beside Centerbrook, and we went into some detail about that. So the sidewalks and the walkability, safety of the center were themes that we kept going back to. The other was beautification along Warren Brook. That could be, if they had a walk along there with some benches or something to make that better looking. If you want people to come to the town center, you're going to have to improve the looks of it. And, greenery, plantings, places to sit can do a lot with that. I believe the church, now I'm going to forget the name of it, the parish, United Parish, thank you, that they're already working on ways to improve the front of the church, to make it more accessible, to make it beautiful. We went into not a lot of conversation, but some conversation about the intersection in town. I think that's been discussed fairly thoroughly, but everyone was in easy agreement. It's not safe, it needs to be fixed. Whether you increase the size of the common, or that would be the preferred thing, so that you could have more activities, recreation, if you will, on the common area. Different things also came up. Dog park. Is there any possibility of this around? Locations, Heritage Park. Another strong theme is that we need better access to Heritage Park. I mean, it's a sweet little park located right in town, and it's really difficult, to get there to park. Is there a way that we could, from the town center, be able to walk to Heritage Park? And there is a possibility for this. So we discussed that with I mean, both groups discussed that with some length. It- yep.
The Heritage Park access possibility is there's a shoebox-shaped lot right next to the Rose Garden. It's a floodplain lot, so it really isn't developable, but it would be the perfect place to put a trail crossing that would connect up with Heritage Park. And Heritage Park has, it's a water feature. It's got mill pond, shoreline, places for people to enjoy the water.
And that came up with both groups. It was a separate groups that both, they brought that up. We need better access and we need to make better use out of it. And right, those are the big themes in the first group. And I'll leave it to Mike to discuss the map and what about.
Yeah, there's a couple other, potential open space connections. They're actually further away from the town center, but they're worth mentioning. One is, this is Pratt Pond, Kiwanis Beach, and this is a conservation area. We call it the Pratt Pond Conservation Area. Wouldn't it be too difficult to connect a trail system from here to the north to Upton State Forest, which somebody in our group mentioned gets 50,000 visitors a year, Upton State Forest. It's very, and town is currently working on its open space and recreation plan. And one of the things, and we did a survey, which I hope most of you probably filled out and sent back. Right? All right. Thank you. We got about almost 900 responses that we've been working through. But one of the things people were really looking for was a long-distance loop trail connections. That was a very popular alternative. So this is one possibility. You connect from the Pratt Pond area to Upton State Forest. Another one, a little closer to the town center, is going down Grove Street, south down Grove Street to Station Street, would get you pretty close to what we're calling Center Brook Conservation Area now. It's part of the Crosswind subdivision that was recently built. The town has open space along Center Brook, so we could get a Center Brook walk along there. It would be within walking distance from the town center. Yes.
And when a person brought up that we have 50,000 people come to the state park every year, we need to look at that as a strength. We're always thinking about what do we have to offer? Well, what do we have to offer? A lot of recreation areas and the state park. I mean, how do we get those 50,000 people from the state park to maybe come to the center of Upton and, maybe buy a smoothie, an ice cream cone, cup of coffee, but come down to, our equally beautiful center of town. So the 50,000, that just blew me.
See, there are a couple other points. One is just much closer to the center of town is the area just, and I hope today maybe if you do take that walk, if you spend some time behind the church, behind Holy Angels along the brook, the mill pond, it's a dam, so there's a concrete weir and the water falls over the dam, maybe 10, 15 feet. So you get the sound of falling water right in that location. Plus you've got the brook running along. It's just a really nice spot. You can't hear 140, the trucks on 140. So it's just something to think of in terms of maybe benches or a small green space. It wouldn't have to be very big, but it's a place people could sit and have lunch or just sit and enjoy the sound of the falling water. All I have. Yes, it comes out right downstream of the Grove Street Bridge. It goes into about maybe a 48-inch culvert or so, 36, 48-inch culvert, and it goes probably I don't know exactly where it goes, but it probably follows Grove Street, but it does discharge just downstream of the Grove Street Bridge. There's there's a culvert that you would definitely have to consider. Yes. Yeah, again, all the way from Main Street to the Grove Street area. And that stream, it's an intermittent stream. It doesn't flow all the time. It's got a drainage area of about a half a square mile. Center Brook is a perennial stream, and it flows all the time. And it's also classified in this area, downstream of Mill Pond, all the way to where it meets the West River. It's a cold water stream. It has trout in it.
Is there any comments from any of the people that were in the group that we missed the main themes?
Why don't we talk about the library and senior center, all those good things.
You won't be able to see that far away. So hi, my name's Matthew Bachtold. I'm the library director. Most of you I know, some of you I haven't. But I'm going to talk briefly about our two groups. And our groups were interesting because they were very different demographically. The first group was one set of the Upton population, and the second group was a different set. So we got two different perspectives there. And I want to start by just sharing some background information, because not everyone was aware that we have right now in town an active feasibility committee that is looking at the possibility of combining library services with elder and social services into one entity that we are calling a community center. And it would combine those two departments and all of their services into a new facility somewhere in town. And we're hoping through this process we get some idea of where in town that should be. So our first group was mostly people that had been longtime residents of the town. They were mostly all current library users. So we didn't spend a lot of time talking about why we need a new library or what the weaknesses and strengths of the current library are, because they were all very familiar with it. We mostly talked about how do we solve the problems. And the participants came up with a list of at least 5 different options and possibly variations on those options of what we could do. One of them is this shared community building that the committee is talking about, and our goal is we're aiming for right around the time of the town meeting in May, but possibly a little later into the end of May. We're hoping to have a set of plans that you and the rest of the town can look at to know what we're talking about in terms of size and services for this community center building. The other option could be renovating the Knowlton Ristine building and using more of that space for a library. And I will mention, in the shared building, we are hoping to take the window with us if we leave. So we do have that in mind. Another option is to look at Holy Angels Church, that building possibly plus an addition to go onto it, to use that for either just library or library plus elder and social services or some combination. There was a mention of some town-owned land out on Westboro Road, which potentially would give a larger site, but it's more removed from the center of town. And then any opportunities with what we're calling the Trask land, which is some land that was donated to the town recently. It may have some restrictions on how it can be used. So that group really focused on, we have all these options. We've been talking about all these options for 20 years, and we haven't picked which one are we really going to do. So we are hoping out of this visioning process comes some guidance from the community to say, hey, we really think the library and elder and social services need to go in this downtown center somewhere, or we think it belongs somewhere else in the town. So you can help us with that. I will mention we are also talking about historical society space within this shared building. So hopefully we can accommodate that. So that was the first group. My second group was I want to say young parents, but some of them may have children that are college age at this point. So they're newer residents to town, may have been here 10 years, 15 years, raised their families here or are starting to raise their families here. And many of them were not current library users and were not people that are currently using social and elder services. So that discussion was more about sharing what kinds of services we actually do provide. And there's some photos here. If you get a chance at the end of the meeting, walk past these, especially with the Council on Aging. They have a wide range of services. It's not just for senior citizens. It's for everyone. They provide a lot of assistance to needy families. They provide activities, program space, and there was some surprise on that group when they heard what is actually being offered and what we could offer in the future. So the feedback we got from them was we need to do a better job. When we say community center or shared municipal center, we need to make sure people know what is actually going to be in that building and what it can offer. That group mostly preferred a downtown location. We talked about, should this thing go downtown? Should it be on the outskirts? There were some comments that, you know, if you're a library user, no matter where the library is, you're going to go to it. But if it was downtown, it could be an attraction, it could be a draw. The phrase active seniors was used a couple times. These are people that are moving into 55 and over developments, have a significant amount of income, and they're looking for stuff to go do. And downtown could be a place for that. And we had a few comments in that group from people that they go to other towns to use library services. They go to other towns to get their social services. Someone in that group said, oh, I go to the Hopkinton Center because they have all these things that we don't have. Or I go to Westboro Library because they have services that aren't offered here. So there was some ideas for bringing some of those services and those people back to Upton. I do have a handout, if you didn't get it, that has some information about the current library and the current Council on Aging space. And both Janice, the director of Elder and Social Services, and myself, the library director, please contact us if you have ideas for what services should be in there. Because right now, the committee is making our list of this is the stuff we want to go in the building. And then the downtown development group will tell us, hey, we identified a site that we think would be good for you to put this building, and then we can put the whole project together. Questions? Sure. So on the library side, you know, obviously we lend materials. That's kind of library tradition. But we also do, you know, children's story times. We do book groups. We do movie nights. One of the things we are currently lacking, and this question came up, is we do a good job with the young kids, but we lose them when they go to middle school or high school. And so a very nice young adult space is something we currently lack that most libraries have. We provide internet access, technology access, so if you have to go apply for a job and they only take online applications and you can't do that from home, you can come in and do it. I should let Janice answer some of the rest of this, but I know she does meals for the whole community. She has trips. They do a van service. Here, I'll let you.
Thank you. So if you have into the senior center, basically it's one main room with our offices. So there's no separate space to have any, like for example, right now we're finishing up AARP does free tax services. They're in the back with the petition going on. Next to them is the Meals on Wheels program. So that's being in the same room. We have exercise programs that go on. We have the podiatrist that comes in and does the toenails in the same room as the meals are being prepared. There's such a lack of space. And the gentleman that goes to Hopkinton was talking about that they have all these classroom spaces in addition to the great room. So these are things that we want to expand. I'm really focused on that the future needs. The numbers are definitely increasing substantially in the 55 plus. We want to prepare people for retirement, to help them selecting insurances as they go forward. There is such a need. Plus, community involvement. I heard the moms talking this morning that if you have younger children before they hit school, it's hard to meet other people in town. Same thing for seniors. So this is something I'd like to see if we can kind of, with the new center and the programs that Matthew and I are talking about combining, like he said, look at this. A lot of these are intergenerational programs. We do a lot with the schools. We do a lot with the police department. Their annual suppers coming up the beginning of May. We do a lot with the fire department. I don't think there's any department in town that I don't work with, quite honestly. So, yeah. I don't know if I answered the question or got on my bandwagon about what we do, but. Any other questions? Me or Matthew?
Yeah, so if you didn't hear the question, it was, how do people feel about blending things together, or should they remain two separate services? And it's a great question because we've looked across the state, we've looked across the country, and there's not a lot of communities that are doing this kind of combination. What you'll see is, you'll see one building that has the library is one side of it and the senior center is the other side. But we're really talking about trying to combine, and I'm starting to use the word blend the two services. In our groups today, most people sounded like it seemed like a good idea, especially after we did a little explaining of how much our services really do overlap. There are concerns, I didn't hear too much of it today, but I have heard concerns of, well, you know, maybe the people that enjoy the elder services don't want to share their space with a bunch of little kids running around. Maybe the parents with young kids have some security concerns about people coming through that aren't necessarily there for the same things they are. I think we can resolve those challenges. It does on the one hand, I'm very excited because this would be it would be a new thing. It would be a big opportunity for the town. We'd kind of be pioneers in doing this sort of thing. But it also makes me worried that no one else has done it yet. But what I heard today was mostly positive. Molly? I will say one thing we're not adding, so when you say community center to people, a lot of times they picture more active recreation, like a gym or a swimming pool. We're not looking at that scale. It's more classrooms and reading space and lounge space. Janice, want to add? And then I think we have more questions.
Deb looked up the definition of community center. Through the years, we've had a challenge of, do we call it a senior center? People don't want to come because it's called a senior center. Do we call it a community center? The definition of a community center is a public location where members of a community tend to gather for group activities, social support, public information, and other purposes. I think that is a really good example of what we're trying to do in this area. I know we keep talking about library, but I'd love to hear about my senior center too, please, because we have a real need. But back to questions.
Ellen, did you want to start?
Okay, and I will, thanks a lot. I will say, when we come out of this feasibility process
We're doing right now, we're hoping to come with at least two options. One will be bigger, have more services and be more expensive. One will be smaller, have less services and be less expensive. And it will be somehow up to the town to decide which of those two we pursue. I'm going to go over here and then we'll come back over here.
We all believe in God? No. Do we all members? No. But we all come and we gather. We have a great relationship with the library. We have a preschool. We have an after-school program. We have art classes. We have food. We have a food pantry. We offer a community supper. So what the senior center has and what the church has and what the library has is exactly what we're all looking for. So I wonder if there's a place that we could all come together and utilize a space that is already existing and we can all partner together. I just offered that up. We've got lots of space.
I'm going to go over here and then I'll come back to you, Richard.
I'd like to request Peter's group to do some research and find out what grants are available from the state for this building, whether it's a community building or a library. And if we combine the building into one building, do we then cut ourselves out of, for instance, state money for a library or state money for a community center? Whatever we do, we should be searching for and gathering up grants, potential grants for this building, so that it's not gone all back to the citizenry for
to my understanding, that exact issue has been thoroughly covered by the last few years of this discussion, which is, we don't really have time to review right now, but you're absolutely right, that is an important factor, not just for the library, but for this whole downtown redevelopment, rerouting roads and building new buildings. So grants could make a big difference, and what the state highway department will let us do will make a big difference. So yeah, you're absolutely right, that's a big part of it.
Do we have time for more questions, or do we need to move on? All right, Richard, I'm going to...
Two.
Sure. So the feasibility committee is currently, yeah. So we're taking our list of services and coming up with some floor plans with so I'm going to take a look at what sizes were adequate. It could. My property is 8 to 10 acres, so much bigger than what we're talking about downtown. So the trade-off is you lose your nice downtown location, but you get lots of parking. In the sense we already own it, yes. I mean, the cost of the building, but then that adds some cost, sure. I'm going to, one more question here, and then I think we need to move on. Sure. I think that's a great comment, and I know Lori, do we want to do one more question?
Sure.
Lori, our library trustees, so she may have a quick comment. All right, I'm going to let Peter take over. I'll just say, if you have more comments or you want more information, please come to the Municipal Center Feasibility Committee or myself or Janice, and we'd love to talk to you more about this.
Are you having a public meeting for that?
All our meetings are open meetings. We're not at the point where we're doing a public hearing. So once we have some diagrams you can actually look at, then we'll do a public hearing.
But the meetings are listed on the town website, so people can just show up.
Yep, and you can always either come to my office or Janice's office or send us an email. Thank you.
All right, well, we're running out of time, and we have a few more groups. We sort of want to summarize what we heard. Was there another comment?
Undersized. So we are where we said we'd get you out of here by 3 and then go for a walk. I think rather than have more discussion, we'll sort of present what we heard, and then we can move on and talk more at the next working group meeting, which will be April 1st. No fooling. Right. So this, I wanted to show a couple pictures of the modeling exercise just to show you what we came up with. This is the existing model. So here's 140, here's the town hall, here's the Congregational Church, here's the old Catholic Church, and the pond. Right, so this is one of the nice things about having a model is you can really see what you see in the old photographs, which is the way the center is kind of unfolds as you drive through it. So you have this really nice curve in the road, and you can't see here, but at the end of that curve, there's the common and the pizza building, and then the various churches. So from wherever you approach it, there's a landmark at the end of your view, which sort of marks this as the town center, sort of classic New England village center. I'm going to go back to, that's the Economic Development Committee. This is not very great pictures, as they turned out, but if you look here, this is looking down with the pond north going to the right, and then looking. One of the ideas the first group had is to bring North Main Street directly down, eliminating the pizza building, whatever you call it, the old pharmacy, which everyone agreed would be a shame, but then the benefit is you would open up the common to the view of the pond and sort of open up that resource, and then to bring Church Street straight down to the other end of the common. So you would open up, and the common could just be open space in front of the church and the other buildings right there, and then have one intersection on one side and one intersection on the other. And then the other thing we talked about, this is looking with north facing the top of the screen here, is taking Grove Street, which currently goes straight through here, and this is what we were talking about, bringing it in behind where the Ristine building is. In this case, that would allow opening up this entire block for redevelopment to replace the Ristine building with another more functional building, mixed-use building, to have other buildings that would come up on the corner, have perhaps some open space with views, and then have the parking behind. The parking would work well behind because even though it's a floodplain, you can have a parking lot in it without changing the requirements for flood storage. And then also then you would line the Main Street 140 with new buildings, and then the parking wouldn't be so visible. And then this is looking in the other direction. Possibly this is where the current parking lot and the playground is. So to replace the front of the parking lot with some more mixed-use buildings, to redo the parking behind them, to move the playground closer to the ball fields, and then possibly at the end of this, see that red building is the new library community center on the site of the existing VFW building. All of this is assuming that, of course, the VFW would see a benefit in selling it to the town and participating in this plan, which could include maintaining a facility for them as part of a larger town campus, which could be very nice. Would give them a modern building, continue their facilities, but also generate a lot of cash potentially to support the organization and maintain the functions that they currently provide for the town. So this is looking down. Here's the new reconfigured larger common, which would have more of a presence, which would be nice. Here are the buildings lining the front. This is where the Ristine building is, but you could fill this whole space with things. You could leave part of it open. You're then creating this nice gateway into the center that's lined with buildings, eliminating that intersection up here, having the intersection come out sort of at the entrance to the village rather than in the middle of it. The existing conditions. And the second group talked about, also supported the idea of rerouting Grove Street and coming out behind the Ristine building, also supported putting new buildings up along 140 with the parking behind and the floodplain. In terms of the common, they also supported expanding the common, but perhaps by bringing, one street down the other, one street here, but keeping the pizza shop as the kind of end to that. And I think that's nice because it does help frame the larger public square, and it also, this is a really beautiful building as you're looking down the street from a distance. It's not so beautiful as you get close to it, but that implies that we could bring that building back to its sort of historical glory, hopefully, and maintain it as a nice landmark. And then this is showing, like, totally redeveloping the town parking lot and the VFW site for a combination of mixed-use buildings up along the street with parking behind them, connect that parking with a footbridge over to the Catholic Church building, and then possibly have space for some housing. And we talked about what that could be, whether it should be a big apartment houses or something else. And we didn't get too far in this discussion, but a few people thought it might be nice, smaller scale, either townhouse uses or cottage units that could help provide a little residential cluster. And in my mind, that would do a very nice job of bringing sort of 24/7 life to that location at one end of the village to provide eyes that watching over public space, which is very nice in a village center, so that you're not at night having people come and use it because there's somebody there all the time. And then to have the library community center on the lot just south of the stream with perhaps a bridge over to the parking lot. I'm sorry? Well, the VFW could be incorporated in any of these buildings. They could have, we could rebuild their building closer to the ball fields. So this is in no way suggesting that we eliminate the VFW or make them leave so that we could do something we want. It's definitely would be a partnership and or it would be a willing sale that would benefit them and the organization as well as the town. So I don't want anybody to think that anybody suggested, oh, the VFW stinks, we need to get rid of them, because they're obviously a core part of this community. Though, as with the demographic shifts that we talked about at the beginning, those are affecting the VFW as well. What are they going to be in 50 years? Maybe we'll run out of wars, maybe we won't. But we want to think out into the future, think about how we maintain the wonderful services that they provide, but then also take advantage of what might be opportunities. Donna. I think because affordable housing is sort of a separate discussion, what we're thinking about is certainly a diversity of housing types as something that we know would benefit the community center at every level. And then it'll be up to the town to decide whether that includes some kind of affordable, official affordable. Right. No, it's a great point. That's VFW land, as far as I understand. I think we'd be starting with the proposition that all of that would continue and be better. Well, certainly in my mind, that's a key step in this, is we've sort of realizing, wow, that's a really important opportunity. If we're talking about the town center, we need to figure out whether there's any possibility there. So we'll be talking about that. Yes. All right. Do you want to summarize what the development group?
If you don't mind leaving all of these up. So the Economic Development Group basically worked on a lot of things that you all did and with very similar vision. Consensus of the Economic Development Group was we have to have a critical mass to support any development downtown. So the questions we asked the group were, where do you go to shop, and what do you shop for, and what do you want to have for services downtown, and the only restriction that people uniformly came up with was no big box stores, no CVS, no national company of any kind, local services, local businesses, and a very, very strong desire for shared workspace. Almost everybody in the Economic Development Group felt that, and several were business owners who work out of their home here in town, felt that if there were a place to come downtown, a shared workspace, an incubator, if you will, that there would be no doubt that they would be there. They also said that they looked at it as a potential place to be an incubator for new businesses coming to town, so that people that wanted to have shared resources that we could then graduate to some of our industrial space would be able to get their start in the downtown area. All of this was based upon a vibrant, walkable, community-centric downtown area. In other words, that reflected our values, reflected what we wanted to see from an architectural perspective, reflected what we wanted to see from an open space perspective, and reflected what we wanted in a traffic perspective. Cobbled together in a form that accentuated the classic New England village, but a classic New England village reinvented as a center for commerce or a center for public interaction. So the idea of a bridge across the brook, that was presented. So it really, reflected almost everything that's been discussed before. However, it was just from the focal point of, okay, how do we get to make this thing happen? And the conclusion is that the town has it in its control because they do have the critical mass with some of the buildings we're talking about. So the public spaces that we're talking about building, the community center, the Council on Aging, the library, new library, all of those things create this kind of critical mass. So moving something outside of town, any service that would bring people into the center of town, kind of undermines the concept of revitalizing the downtown. So a revitalized downtown in the Economic Development Committee's group perspective was putting as many different things where people had a chance to interact with each other as possible. And then interact with their local businesses, interact with mothers, if there was a recreational opportunity for mothers to get together, recreational opportunity for older people to get together. The other thing that they recognize is that I think Donna had pointed out 50,000 visitors to the Upton State Forest, that our best selling point in our way is the Upton State Forest, and why aren't we doing more in the town center to bring the people that are going to the Upton State Forest down here, whether this is the interpretive area where we have all of the trails in town displayed, all of those things have been were an exercise of the economic development concept. Lots of people wanted to talk about the industrial center concept, but we decided to focus just on the downtown area as being the most critical area right now for our, a rebirth of the downtown area.
And finally, yes. Dylan.
Hey, you guys are all still here. That's nice. I wish I had some like giant curtain to whip back and show you the amazing vision of your future town center. But I think in some ways, I think that from what I've heard today, there are a lot of pieces that you guys have identified that all come together into a cohesive center. The session that I was running was sort of the sister to the economic development session. So approaching the same questions, but from the perspective of what do people in town want for themselves. So what kind of center would add to quality of life for Upton residents? Not so much from the perspective of economic development, but just what do you need for yourselves? And so we went through and people identified all the things that they like about other town centers and other downtowns. The various features like having sculpture or benches or playgrounds or fireworks or local businesses or diversity of socioeconomic groups and racial groups. And so we laid out all the possibilities they could think of what makes a great town center, and I grouped them. And then I gave them the really difficult task of identifying the ones that they thought were the most important for Upton Center, and everybody got 3 choices. And what's amazing to me is how much cohesion there was in terms of what people thought was most important. So I've grouped them at the top. The ones with the little lines here are ones that people voted for. So organized events got 4 votes. There's a sense that there were a lot of organized events in the past in Upton, and those have sort of dropped off. There's still some great things. There are great things happening at the VFW with a car show. There's a trunk or treat happening that people are really excited about, and so on. But there's a sense that there needs to be more organized events to draw people to Upton Center to create a sense of community. And I think that's a good thing to identify, because organized events, that's just people and time, right? That's volunteerism, that's community building, that's not millions and millions of dollars and years to redevelop a road. It's something you can start doing now. Another one that was really popular, restaurants. People want a restaurant in downtown. They think that is really crucial to the center, that you have either a restaurant or a coffee shop or that smoothie stand that gives a reason to come here, that builds on what's already here. So you, like Don has been saying, you go to the library, you get a cup of coffee, or you go to a meal and you go to a park. But having that restaurant is seen as really important. Other town services, mostly the group, this was in the first group, and they're identifying things like nails, spray tanning, various, basically beauty products like beauty services. And I think that's pretty accurate for the needs of one of the main demographics of this town. So basically personal services. There was a vote for beautifying and more greenery in the center. Walkability got a lot of votes, right? So were sort of the top vote getters. So a center that makes you feel like it's a nice place to come to, that you feel proud of, that's appealing, and that extended beyond the public spaces to the businesses themselves. So people were mentioning that there are businesses here in the town center, but their facades are not appealing, the interior layouts of the stores are not appealing, and so people go to other towns to do their shopping. They would prefer to do it here, but there is a mismatch between the businesses that are available in the town center and the businesses that people want to patronize. And part of that goes back to sort of just the spaces that are available for businesses in this town. In the center, they're not set up and they're not conducive for higher end businesses, right? So you got to sort of get that train chugging back uphill. So you got a better match between what the demographics in Upton is looking for and the businesses that can support that can meet those needs. Cohesive look, similar to Purple, and then unique attractions and artsy features. and safety. Walkability and safety were closely related, right? We want it to be nice to walk, but at its base, we want to be able to feel like we're not going to get hit by a car. Or, so, for me, the main thing that I took away from hearing people talk about what they want in Upton is that there's an actual need here, right? It's not just we have this kind of underutilized land, wouldn't it be nice if it was fixed? But that there's a palpable need for a place where people in Upton can come together, where they can run into friends, that you can kind of attach a community identity to, and that it isn't working so well for people to commute long distances to work and come back to a town where there's not much for them to do. That's a real drag on the town. It's a drag on people's spirits, and it's a drag sort of economically, right? Because you have this nice school system, you've got these nice open spaces, you've got housing that's relatively affordable compared to like Boston Metro, closer in, right? So people are attracted to this town, but then they get here, and as new residents, they're sort of let down. And it takes a long time to get into the mainstream of the community and to develop those friendship relationships. So I think that the center can be a place where that community is built quicker and faster, and there's more mixing of groups. Somebody mentioned that the population of Upton is really segmented, right? So like, when your kids are in school, you're friends with all the people who your kids are in school with. That's how you meet. Or when you're older, maybe you're going to the senior center and you have your little pod there. But there's not much intermingling between the groups. And so people saw the center as an opportunity for that to happen.
All right. Well, I see the clock on the church says it's 3:16. Is that accurate? Thank you for providing that, because I left my phone in the car. So we're going to let you go. Again, if you're interested in continuing with this conversation, the working group is meeting again on the 1st. If you could let Jean or the town office know that you're interested in attending, we just need to make sure we have enough space if extra people come. Otherwise, I really want to thank you for giving up your Saturday to come and help us with this. It's been tremendously informative for us and inspiring in many ways. And I think we're going to be able to avoid a lot of mistakes, which will be good process, and hopefully target some of those really exciting ideas. So, without any further ado, thank you for coming.